So it's 3:05. Why don't we get started?
Okay.
Perfect. Well, thank you all for joining us today and for introducing yourselves. This session is being brought to you by Onondaga Pathways to Careers, or OPC, as we call it. My name is Kathy Welch, and I'm the recruitment specialist for OPC. We also have Celestia Orazda on the phone. On the screen. She is our SU liaison. And we have Laura Mokrisky. She's our Career Services Program Coordinator who's joining us today. So to give you a little background about the Scholars Program in OPC, Onondaga Pathways to Careers is a demonstration grant. It's funded by the Office of Disability Employment Policy through the Department of Labor, with a goal to get students ready for college, for the classroom, for accommodations, and for advocacy. The program is geared towards high school seniors with an IEP or 504. High school classroom is different from the college classroom, and our goal is to help you recognize some of those differences, as well as to prepare you for the transition through these sessions that we're going to provide. So today there's an agenda on the screen. We're going to just a quick overview that we're going over. We're going to have an online learning strategy presentation. And we're going to talk about some of the differences between high school and college, really important differences. And at the end, we'll leave room for questions and answers. If you have any questions at any time, you can put them into the chat. We will get to those questions. And, housekeeping note, which I think you're all pretty aware of, is if we could mute our mics while the presentations are on, we will be responding to the chat box as best as we can. So as you all know, there's been many changes with COVID. In the past, we would meet in person for this program, for the Scholars Program, right on Onondaga Community College's campus. But because of all the restrictions, we've decided to provide this virtually. So just like your school is being brought to you virtually and many other things these days are being brought virtually, we are going to bring this programming and answer any questions that you might have. So with the big shift from classroom to a virtual learning environment, we want to start today off with some online learning strategies that will be helpful not only for college, but for to apply in your current virtual learning environment. So Celeste is going to take that away and we'll get started with that.
Okay, now can you see it?
Yes.
Great. And I'm an IT person, man. I'm going to talk about some strategies for online learning. We've sort of been thrown into this whole online thing, and it looks like it's probably not going to go away, and more and more universities are going to be using it, maybe not fully online like we are right now, but more of a hybrid. So as you probably all know, online learning is education that takes place over the internet. It's often referred to as e-learning. And this is a shift away from the top-down lecturing that you're used to, where students sit passively and receive information. And the instructor's role is changing sort of from the expert on the stage to more of a collaborator and a guide. So I'm going to go through some strategies to help you be even more successful. So basically, what do you need to succeed? It seems pretty obvious, because your online class will be likely to be accessed through a computer, a phone, or a tablet. So take some time to become acquainted with the platform and utilize any materials you may need prior to class. The next thing is you need to have a reliable internet connection. It's crucial to success. If you have a patchy internet connection, it's going to be very, very frustrating. Make sure you ask IT for any support that you will need and reach out to them. And probably one of the most important things that you need to succeed, it's not the hardware or the software, but it's the motivation to succeed. Online learning requires you to be a self-starter. You need to be able to motivate yourself to study and follow your timetable, even in the midst of laziness. Have any of you had problems motivating yourself the last 3 months? This is your chance to interact.
I have. I have as well.
Me too.
Yeah.
So am I.
Yeah, I know I have a daughter and she's a big procrastinator, and this the fall's a lot different, being that usually you have a time that you've got to do it that follows the school schedule, rather than getting up at 1 o'clock in the afternoon and trying to get everything done.
No, not really.
Oh, that's great. That's great. Keeping up and everything. And here are some benefits to online learning. First of all, it's very convenient. It's available 24/7. Wherever you have a computer, you have access to your course. And this accommodates busy schedules. There's no commuting, no searching for parking. Second is the enhanced learning environment. Research shows increased depth of understanding and retention of course content, more meaningful discussions, an emphasis on writing skills, technology skills, and life skills like time management, independence, and self-discipline. Online learning also levels the playing field. Students can take more time to think and reflect before communicating. Shy students tend to thrive on learn and anonymity of the learning environment. Another benefit is the interaction that you receive. There's increased student-to-teacher and student-to-student interaction and discussion, a more student-centered learning environment, less passive listening and more active learning, and a greater sense of connectedness. And finally, studies show that you may actually do better in online classes. How many of you have found that your grades might have increased in the last quarter because you were doing things online in a different modality?
I definitely noticed that, especially like with gym. Like with gym, it's a lot easier to do it at home and like do the forced activities that you need to do in school. And just in general, I like the being able to do it at home, like at the comfort. It's also kind of difficult because you're not at school, you know?
And you don't have to change into your gym clothes. Anybody else doing better with their online course as opposed to face-to-face?
Yeah,
I am. Yeah.
That's great.
Oh.
I have.
Speak up.
I have. I've definitely seen an improvement.
Okay, so the first strategy is what I mentioned earlier, is to have a positive attitude. So adopt a positive attitude about the process, your school, the instructors, the courses you're taking, and fully invest yourself in this community. As you probably know, you need to have persistence and commitment. Are you enthusiastic and willing to learn without having to receive reminders from a professor? If you are self-motivated and are willing to stay on top of deadlines, online courses can give you the freedom that you need to successfully complete courses at your own pace. Online learning requires you to be a self-starter. You need to be able to motivate yourself to study and stay online. And contrary to popular belief, online courses are typically not blow-off classes. They usually have very similar academic rigor to their face-to-face counterparts. So approach your online course with this in mind. It's not an easier class, it's just a different modality. My second strategy, and this is probably one of the most important strategies, is to speak up and self-advocate. You need to connect and engage with the instructor via email or utilize online offices and make the instructor help you throughout the course. Even though you may study alone at home, You should always feel comfortable emailing or messaging your professor if you're having a tough time, but don't wait until the last minute. The second point here is advocate for your accommodations. Give your faculty, your instructor, feedback about what helps you learn and what does not help you learn. Be mindful that your accommodations may change as your classes move online. You may want to request access to recordings of class lectures or the option to use external software like voice recognition. You may want to ask for more time on exams and involve your disability resource office when necessary. Again, make sure you understand the expectations about participation and communications and ask questions of your instructor or your classmates as necessary. So a lot of times people don't understand, like if there's a discussion going on or stuff like that, like your teacher may say, hey, say hi to me this morning. And you look at it and you're like, well, that's not an assignment that I'm going to get graded on. So you just sort of ignore that whole little discussion that may be going on. You really need to engage yourself in the community. So even if you're not getting a grade for it, communicate. You probably all have your technical skills down by now, but here are some of the technical skills that you need. A successful online learner needs to have some basic technical skills. These include the ability to create new documents, upload files, and share files. You also need to be able to navigate the internet doing meaningful searches. So familiarize yourself with the course management tools and document sharing tools that you're going to be using at your school. Probably most of you have been using Google Classroom, and when you transition into the college environment, typically we use other course management tools. I believe OCC uses Blackboard. So before the course even starts, you might want to look at some tutorials on how to do things in Blackboard. And you all know how to learn, you all know how to connect to online meetings because you're here. So get comfortable with the settings and learn how to connect via the phone if you aren't able to connect via Zoom or Blackboard Ultra or whatever, Go Meeting, whatever they're using. Learn how to use the interactions such as email, discussion boards, listservs, web meetings, and chat rooms. I know most of you are probably really familiar with discussion boards and web meetings and chat rooms, but I notice many students these days, they have email, but they don't even check it. I know my daughter, she does her online learning with Google Classroom, and I just looked the other day at her email, and she had something like 1,700 emails that had never been looked at. It makes knowing when your assignments have been posted and things like that a lot easier because they automatically go to your email too, so you don't need to check in each individual class if you have a new assignment because it's all right there in one place in your emails. So I can't stress how important email is with online learning. The next thing I want to talk about is formatting discussions. I know it's really hard to type in the discussion board, especially if you're using a phone or a small laptop. So I would suggest format your discussion in a software that you're familiar with, whether it be like Word or Notepad or something like that. And that way you can do like a spell check on it, make sure your punctuation's correct, and then just copy and paste it into the discussion board. And another thing is make sure the materials that your instructors are posting are accessible. So if you find something is not accessible, direct your instructor to how to make resources accessible. I know this last 3 months, a lot of teachers just had to sort of do things on the fly. So there were, scans of books that were, very hard to read and things like that. So just if you find something that isn't accessible, go back to your instructor and say, hey, this doesn't work for me. It's their responsibility to provide you with a format that works for you. The next strategy is create a study space. Have any of you guys created a little space that you know that's where you go and that's where you work, or are you just doing it wherever you want?
I've got a setup space.
That's great.
Yeah, same here.
Same with me.
Uh,
I do
not,
too.
not me.
What about you guys? Do you have a dedicated space for the days that you're remote?
I just stay home.
Okay. Not going to make you all answer. Because in a face-to-face class, you usually split your time between a classroom and someplace outside of the classroom to study and complete assignments. With an online course, all of your time is spent outside of the classroom. Therefore, it's even more important that you have a good place to do your work. So create a dedicated study space. It could be a table or a desk. That works great. Try to use a space that you don't use during your free time. So I would recommend that you don't use your bed, even though it's really comfortable to snuggle in bed with your laptop. You need a place that's free of distractions. So if you have a lot of people around you or roommates or things like that, let them know what you need. Again, going back to what you need for technology, you need a reliable internet in this study space. And make sure you have all of your supplies available. So if you need like a syllabus, make sure it's printed out. Make sure you have your calendar right there with you. If you like to listen to music while you're studying, have your Alexa or your speakers or whatever right nearby, so that once you sit down in that space, you're there and you're there to study. So if you need a snack, bring a snack along with you so you're not constantly leaving the space, getting up, sharpening a pencil, getting a snack or whatever. So prepare yourself, and just the last point here is follow classroom norms. So what I mean by that is, in class, you wouldn't be watching TikTok. You wouldn't be IMing your friends. So when you're in your workspace, follow these norms and it will help you succeed. Strategy number 5 is schedule your time and take breaks. So what I mean by this is develop a long-term schedule that includes when you're going to do your classes, when you're going to have your meals, when you're going to sleep, and some other aspects of self-care, such as when I get up in the morning, I'm going to do a little stretching, and then I'm going to have a breakfast that I'm going to, study for an hour. In addition to that, the long-term schedule, create a calendar. It can be a physical calendar or it can be on your phone. When you're going to allocate time for particular class sessions, when assignments are due, when exams are due, and other tests. So this is going to be a detailed list of everything that you have to do. The next thing is plan ahead and start early. You may look at an assignment and be like, oh, well, that's not due for 2 weeks. There's a reason your instructor has given you 2 weeks to do it. Chances are it's going to take a little bit more time than an ed puzzle that may take 15 minutes to do. So plan ahead, and it doesn't hurt to get things in early. My last point here is do it in chunks and take breaks. It's not like typical school where we go to school from 8 o'clock in the morning till 3, and we have a lunch break and that's it. Study, do something for 50 minutes, get outside, walk around, take your dog for a walk, watch a couple of TikTok videos, and then get back to studying again. This gives your brain a time to relax and rejuvenate. So those breaks are really important so that you don't have burnout. Seems pretty obvious, but stay organized. You may want to have file folders, different colored file folders for each class. Just like in school, how you have a binder, usually for each class with dividers. Just because everything's online now doesn't mean that you can give up that whole organization thing. If you have documents that you frequently use, such as a syllabus that has all of the assignments and when they're due, print it out and put it in a binder. One thing that I have found very helpful, and I'm speaking from experience of a parent with an 8th grader, is even though a lot of your textbooks are going to be online, consider buying or renting physical copies of the books. That way you can mark them up. They're right there. You can look at the book and follow along with the assignment. We have found that that's very, very helpful, is if you can find the book on Amazon, buy it. Create to-do lists. So sit down before you start your day and say, this is what I'm going to get done today. Organize your files that make sense to you and allow for growth. What I mean there is this could be a long-term thing. So you don't want everything just all in one place on your desktop with a million files on it. So create a folder, a virtual folder for each one of your classes, and you might want to have folders inside those folders, either by week or by unit. So that's what I mean by growth. The next thing, and they don't stress this enough in the IT courses that you take, but naming conventions for your files. When you download a doc, and make sure you name it so you know what it is without having to open it back up again. So it could be unit test for cell exam, unit test 6 cell exam, and then put your initials after it. Because if you submit it to your instructor and everyone has the same file name, they're not going to know whose is whose. So just find a naming convention and stick to it. Also, keep a copy of anything you submit. There's always glitches in technology, so keep a copy and don't get rid of it. And last is, I know it's really easy just to sit back and read your material on your computer or your phone, but this doesn't negate the whole idea of taking good notes. So even though you think it's right there and you can just do a Control F to find something back in your notes again, take either virtual or physical notes as you read your assignments. Number 7, strategy 7 is know what resources are available to you. Go to your disability service office and determine what tutoring, coaching, or writing center resources are available online at your institution. Just because you may not physically be there, that does not mean the resources are not available to you. And then reach out to everybody and know the policies and resources. So that means making contact either virtually or face-to-face with the different people that will provide you with the resources. And you may need to request new or different accommodations at this point. And figure out as early as possible all the technologies, websites, and campus resources you may need to use in the course and master them. We're getting towards the end here. We talked about communicating with your instructor. It's very important to communicate with others where you're not alone in this. One of the benefits of going to school is the amount of people it puts you in contact with. Friendships, mentorships, and networking can all come from the academic experience. And as we see, and we've had experience with, online learning is definitely less personable. You can go to multiple classes online without ever having any interaction with anybody. I recommend that you make an effort to make connections. So in the chat rooms of your different classes, talk to the other students. Get involved in discussions. Maybe even if it's not a required online meeting, schedule one with, schedule a Skype call or a meeting with some of the people that are in your class. Because the more you interact, the more you learn. Some classes at the very beginning, they will have like an icebreaker where everyone introduces themselves. If they don't, just get out there and introduce yourself, let people know what your passions are, why you're here. One of the things I do, I have one class I teach online at the university, and the first day of class, before class even starts, is every student is required to create a meme about themselves. And we all know what memes are, right? So it's just, this meme expresses who I am. And my last point is some video and conferencing tips. And as we've all learned, attending classes in video conferencing requires a bit of skill and finesse in order for you to really stand out. So at the beginning, ask your instructor to set clear expectations for how to engage. Do they expect you just to, are the meetings optional, or do they expect you to be there? Do they expect you to have your video on? Or can you turn your video off if you're not comfortable with your video on? So make sure you ask your instructor, what do you expect to get out of these video meetings? We saw this as you were all coming in here, is look at your name in the participant list and be sure it shows your preferred name. So I know a lot of us have, sort of funky names when they come into meetings based on what their settings are. But make sure your name is how you want your instructor to see it. Mute the microphone unless you're talking. And while you're in these meetings, turn off any notifications so things aren't popping up and they aren't taking more bandwidth, so you can focus on the meeting in progress. And here are some additional tips. Develop eye contact with the instructor and the other participants by looking at the camera, not at your screen. Speak slightly louder than normal. And I recommend anybody who's in a meeting to almost over pronunciate and speak a little bit slower too. Oftentimes these meetings will be sent to a captioner. So if you speak clearly and slower, the captioning will go that much better for the captioner. Find a private place, a quiet place where you're not going to be interrupted, and turn off any sounds around you. I know when I'm in a meeting, like right now, I need to turn my turtle tank off because it sounds like I'm underwater because all you hear is all of this water running. So, and practice, practice, practice. I mean, you might want to practice with a friend before you get on with everybody else. But those are my tips on how to be successful. Any questions?
I actually wrote down a few, if that's okay.
Yeah.
So I have, what exact changes do you prepare, students for college? What exact changes do you guys go through?
We are going to cover that in a few minutes, the differences between
My bad.
college and high school.
My bad.
Oh, no, that's okay. You know exactly where we're headed. Okay, let me just, anybody else have any questions? I'm trying.
Oh, actually, yes, I have two, but I can save the other one for later.
Oh.
How do we know exactly what services schools offer?
You can go to your resource office, resource coordinator, and ask, let them know what you need, and and then ask what is available.
And resource coordinator, do you mean like in college or like in high school?
In high school, in college, most colleges have a disability service office,
Yes.
and you'll be introduced to them right when you, as early as possible.
Okay. And then, so for like high school, do we just go to our school counselor?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
Thank you.
those are very good questions. Am I still sharing my screen?
No, we just see your background. We see the
Oh,
northern
okay. I'll put my face on now. Okay. Anybody else? Okay. So Kathy, I'm going to pull up the,
We're going to move into the question and answer section. And Milo, this should answer your question that you had just had for Celestia. This should cover some good information on that topic.
let me just bring this. Sometimes having multiple monitors really screws things up. Okay, I'm going to share my screen again. Okay, so Kathy and I have put together some like an FAQ of some of the most common questions you might have regarding the difference between high school and college. We're covering a few questions this session, and we'll be covering more in the following sessions as we have various guest speakers come from, for example, from Office of Accessibility Resources that will be able to cover some of the questions that you may have in greater depth. So, Kathy, I want to ask you, what are the most important things for students with disabilities and their families to know about access to accommodations in higher education?
Good question, Celestia. So in special education, K through 12, the real emphasis is on the students with disabilities having success. When you move into college, the emphasis shifts, and that is for access. In that meaning, the student is the one who's going to be in charge of their education when you go to college, and must make their accommodation needs known. When you're in high school, your guidance counselor and your resource officer might know, or resource coordinator would know that what your IEP is and what your needs are. When you go to college, that's different because your IEP and your 504 do not carry over to college. You will be most likely need to provide them to your college with a copy and any other documentation that your Office of Accessibility Resources asks for when you go to college. And that office could be named something different. Different colleges call your Disability Services Office by different names. At OCC, it is the Office of Accessibility Resources. And when you go to college, they do require a copy of your IEP or your 504, along with any psych exams that are given, which you do get those every 3 years if you have an IEP. So you would need to provide those, especially at OCC. I know those are the exact documentation you would need. But you would also need to self-identify to the office.
What do you mean by that? Self-identify?
So they won't come looking for you knowing that you had an IEP. You have to go to the Office of Accessibility Resources and let them know that you did have an IEP and that you want to get conversations started so that you can get the accommodations you need in college. Okay.
Great. Do any of you have any questions regarding this question? Okay, let's move on to the next question, Kathy.
Perfect.
What kind of supports are available to students with disabilities in college? I know like in high school, they may change the curriculum. You may be exempt from taking a foreign language. So what kind of supports are available to us once we go to college?
Sure. So Some common accommodations in college are things like a sign language interpreter, note takers for classes, also testing accommodations, extended time, or an alternate location to take a test, and those are pretty common in high school as well. There's also permitting the use of a dictionary or spell checker if that's what your needs are. There's alternative formats that you will take a test in, written materials in alternative formats, such as large print, braille, or e-text. There's also speech to text and text to speech programs as well, whether you need it for reading or writing. Environmental accommodations are also accommodations provided by the college, and that could be the removal of any architectural barriers, installing better lighting to assist students with low vision, as an example. Colleges also provide assistive technology, such as listening devices or recording devices. Another example of an accommodation that would be provided is in residence halls if you choose to live on campus, such as a special refrigerator or furniture or bath facilities that you might need. Those are all common supports and services that are available to students when you go to college.
Thank you, Kathy.
Yeah, I will say, and I don't know, the one thing that is important to know is if you have a personal aide in high school, that is not a accommodation that you would receive provided by the college when you go to college. It is the responsibility of, yes, it's the responsibility of the student and the family to provide these services themselves. We can recommend some agencies that you might be able to work with in our area, such as Exceptional Family Resources or the OPWDD or Access VR to seek out those services, to procure these services and to possibly provide funding for this service as well. But these agencies do not involve OCC in finding the aid.
Great. Is there a resource room or a resource like I have in high school? Like a resource teacher or anything like that to get extra help?
So we don't have a resource room per se. We have something called the Learning Center where you can go for tutoring, and you would sign up online at the website, or you could stop in and you can work with specific, if you have need help in a specific course, you could sign up for a tutor in that specific course. But in college, there will not be a resource room where you would have the same resource teacher every day.
Is tutoring, is that considered an accommodation?
Tutoring is not an accommodation because it is available to all students at the college.
Oh, does it cost?
There is no cost. At OCC, you are allowed 2 tutoring sessions per week per course.
Wow, what a great resource. And so getting on to our last question is, what are some specific differences between high school and college?
Sure. So the first one that we want to stress and talk about is parental roles, your parents' roles. In high school, parents have access to your student records and your teachers and anything else that they might want to find out. They could call the school. They advocate for you. But when you go to college, parents do not have access to any of your information unless you sign a special form called a FERPA form, and that is a Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act form that if you sign it, you would allow them access to your information. But if you choose not to and you want to independently take on the experience, any questions your parents might have, they have to go through you to get that information.
Wow, that's a big difference.
That's a very big difference to be aware of. So it's really important to, make that decision either with your parents or for yourself. And then, know that if you choose not to sign the FERPA form, then it is your responsibility to get any information that you choose to share with your parents. Yeah. The other another big area, what we want to stress is self-advocacy. So it kind of goes along with this parental roles. So the parents are kind of stepping back a little and you're moving forward in more independence. And in high school, the student is identified by the teachers or by your IEP. They are aware that you have these accommodations or these needs. Again, once you go to college, it is your responsibility, the student's responsibility, to locate and identify where their Office of Accessibility resources are, to self-identify any accommodations you might need, in that to meet with a educational counselor in that office, so that you can, in fact, if you need extended time, or if you need an alternate location, or if you need help with note taking, it's your responsibility to start to locate that office and sign up for that. And we'll probably say this a couple times, but starting early is the best. So once you're accepted into college, any college, you want to call that college and locate the disability office and get an appointment as soon as possible. That way it's a smooth transition for you into this new environment, and it helps the office to manage your accommodations better. The other thing we want to talk about is assignments. So assignments in college are going to be different than high school. In high school, your teacher will probably tell you, you have a test next Friday or this Friday, or you have a paper due tomorrow. In college, that's going to be different. They're going to give you something called the syllabus in the beginning of the semester, which is going to list out most of your assignments, tests, and quizzes. It's going to be in one area to manage all that information, and it's going to be your responsibility to know when things are due. They're not going to come after you, or they probably won't allow you extra time if you miss it continuously. They may let you go in the beginning. There might be a pass, but it is the student's responsibility to know when these assignments are due. And the studying in high school, you may have more study support with your resource teacher or the classes that you're in. But when you go to college, again, it's going to be your responsibility to seek out those tutoring services, but also to understand that for one college course, you're going to typically study at least 2 to 3 hours outside of class for each hour in class. And that might be confusing. Celestia, did I?
Yes. So what that means is, for example, most courses, you meet for 3 hours. So you will meet either 3 times a week for 55 minutes, twice a week for 90 minutes, or once a week for 3 hours. But outside of classroom, you're going to spend between 6 and 9 hours with reading and homework and things like that. So you may think, wow, I'm only going to have to go to school Monday, Wednesday, and Friday from 8 till noon, and I'll be done. That may be your schedule for the time you have to go to classes, but you're going to spend significant amount of time outside of your classes doing the homeworks and the readings.
Yes, probably a much larger amount of time than you would on your high school work. So it's good to go in knowing that, so it doesn't seem overwhelming.
Right, because a full-time schedule is just 12 hours or 12 credits. So you're physically or in your classroom only 12 hours out of the week.
Mm-hmm. Right. So so that comes down to one of the tips that Celestia gave, is that time management and understanding what you're going to need to be successful to get through your week and to be successful in your courses. The other big thing with high school, you have bells to let you know when your classes start and end and when to transition to another class. But in college, you don't. You just need a watch, basically, because there is no bells to alert you that one class is ending, or, period 6 is ending and period 7 is starting. It doesn't work like that in college. So you'll be given a schedule, and you'll know you have classes Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and it'll have the times that the classes start and end. And it's really, instructor will obviously let you know when they're done teaching, but then it's your job to move on to your next class and be there on time for the beginning of that class.
Or you might have some time in between your classes, which you need to use that time productively studying or getting an assignment done. And there's no lunch period. You can
Right.
get lunch whenever you want, whenever you have time.
Right. A lot of grab and go in college.
Yep.
Yes. One other thing that I wanted to point out too is curriculum and the assignments. In high school, many of your IEPs might say that assignments can be modified. In college, that's typically not a common accommodation. So if you're having trouble or difficulty with an assignment, or the length of the assignment, the length or the amount of work, or you're just not understanding, it's really important that you advocate for yourself again and speak to your professor and let them know that you're having difficulty, and they may be able to help you through the assignments. But a lot of times they will not change the assignment in college as they might in high school.
Do any of you have any questions for Kathy?
I was just wondering, like, what do the schedules look like in general? Like, is it like in my high school, it's 4 blocks and 4 different days. So, and like the days 2, 4, 1, 3 kind of repeat. Is it similar to that in a way?
That's a very good question, because it is a huge difference. First of all, you're going to make your own schedule. It's not in high school. You are given a schedule, and you're given where you're going to be at a specific time, what courses you're going to take. In college, you choose which courses you're going to take. You'll have what we call a major. So there's certain courses that you need to take for that major, but you set your schedule up, and some people prefer to come on campus, all 5 days. Others
I've heard like morning, night, and afternoon classes.
Right. So these classes run all different times, and so if you're a morning person, you might decide you want to start classes at 8 o'clock in the morning and
Definitely.
be done by noon.
Yeah, thank you.
Yep. That's so you're in control of that.
That's good.
Yeah.
Like, I can manage like what classes at what time, or is it like in a window, or like?
It depends on how soon you register, because classes will fill up. So a lot of people don't like taking morning classes. So if you register late, you might find that the only sections available are at 8 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah, I'm definitely a morning person, so.
Well, then you're fortunate there, because a lot of people don't like, would rather schedule their classes so they don't have.
Yeah, I'd honestly rather
till
have
noon.
morning classes, get it all done,
Yeah.
than extra time in the afternoon. Thank you.
And like Celeste just said too, and register early. There's so many benefits to registering early with your disability service office, with your advisor for your classes. There's many advantages to doing so.
I applied to most of mine. Like, is that what you mean? Like applying and registering?
Yeah. So when you get accepted and you choose your college, don't wait to call your disability resource office, and don't call your advisor and the disability service office right away and find out when you can get in for an appointment.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah, you're welcome. And another thing to talk about the schedule, many of the classes run Monday, Wednesday, Friday, or Tuesday, Thursday. And like Celeste just said, some students choose to be here all 5 days, but some choose just to do a Tuesday, Thursday schedule and then do their work on the Monday, Wednesday, Friday. So there's so much more flexibility with schedules when you get to college than you have in high school.
Okay. So,
And like, can we change that like anytime? Like, say if we're doing Monday, Wednesday, Friday, can we like change it to like all 5 days?
no, you have to wait until the next semester.
That makes sense.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Thank
You'll be assigned to a section for that semester, which is about 16 weeks. And then if that schedule doesn't work for you, you just change it up the next semester.
Yes. Thank you very much. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, I know there's a lot of questions. So Kathy, where can I find out more?
Oh, well, if you go to the next slide, you can contact me at c.d.welch@sunyocc.edu, or you can look at our website, which is www.sunyocc.edu. All the information from today's session will be posted under Fall Scholars, and you can click on that link. And there's also some additional information that we didn't go over necessarily today, but will help you or your parents as you begin to navigate this journey that you're going to begin for college.
Okay. And so as Kathy mentioned, we have all of the materials organized, and I'm going to show you where that is. So all the materials from today's session and other materials that you may find helpful are here at this website, and that link is also on the Scholars page, at the OPC Scholars page. So we have some FAQs, an infographic that puts together the differences. So if you're more of a visual learner, a paper, the presentation I gave for online learning strategies, and you might want to share an open letter to parents of students with disabilities about to enter college. So it's a letter that's you can give to your parents, and it just explains about going to college and things like that. So we're approaching the 4 o'clock hour. Perfect timing. Is there any questions we can answer for you?
No questions?
Okay.
Thank you all for your participation and for sharing a little bit about yourselves and where you go to school. And we hope you will join us for the next session, which is going to be November 4th.
What are we going to talk about in that session?
Oh, that's a good question, Celestia. That is actually Laura's going to be joining us again and talking about some career services that is offered through OCC and most colleges, and what to look for, some soft skill training and information. So you don't want to miss it.
Okay.
All right. Thank you all for attending.
Yep. Hope to see you next month.
We hope to see you. Yes. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Thanks.